Ok, ahora quiero hablar de algunas diferencias entre por y para. Now, these are two prepositions that are not interchangeable, and most people will think they just mean for, okay? But there's a lot of different aspects with for. Okay? So por and para are most commonly used to describe aspects such as movement, time, action, in different circumstances. Okay, so let's review some of these. Okay, let me take you through some. So here's some exact comparisons. So if we're talking about movement, for example, por is if you're going through a place, by a place, around a place, whereas para is indicating the destination. Okay? So, for example, la excursión nos llevó por el centro, so it took us through town. Okay? So we walked around the town. Whereas mis amigos van para el estadio, so they're going to the stadium. Okay? That's their destination. When we talk about time, when we're talking about the duration or how long something lasts, the duration of an event, whatever the case may be, then we're going to use por. But if we're talking about time like a deadline, then we're going to use para. So Ana chateó por 2 horas. So Ana chatted for 2 hours. So that duration for 2 hours por 2 horas. Whereas the deadline, tengo que escribir un ensayo para mañana. So I have to write an essay by tomorrow or for tomorrow. That's when it has to be done. That's the deadline. Okay. VHL tells you things about action. So por is being the reason or the motive for an action or a circumstance. So something like llegué a tarde. Can't speak. Llegué a casa tarde por el tráfico. So that was the reason why I arrived late. Okay. Whereas para is an indication of for whom something is intended or done. So estoy preparando una sorpresa para Eduardo. So I'm doing this action for him. It's intended for him. Okay, some other examples. Here's some more of por. We talked about the movement. We talked about the time of duration and the action of a reason or motive on behalf of somebody. Okay, so some examples are pasamos por el parque, por el río, estuve en la Patagonia por un mes, lo hizo por su familia. So, these are movements through somewhere, along something, how long something went on whose behalf. And then there's also the object of a search. Okay, so vengo por ti a las 8. Manuel fue por su cámara digital. Okay, so those are the reason. I'm coming for you, so I'm in search of you. And he went in search of his digital camera. Okay, some other uses. We can talk about the means by which something is done, meaning by or by way of, by means of. So ellos viajan por la autopista, so that's how they're traveling. Okay, they're traveling by this. You can also think of it like means of communication. You can talk to somebody by phone. Hablo por teléfono. You can talk, or you can write by using a computer. So escribí por computadora. So that's also in number 5. Exchange or substitution. Okay, so le di dinero por el cargador. So in other words, I got the charger, but in exchange I gave him the money. So I gave him the money for the charger. Okay. We also use it very similar to the English per. It's by unit of measure. So things like José manejaba a 120 kilómetros por hora. So he was driving 120 kilometers per hour. Las fresas cuestan $1 por kilo. So the strawberries cost $1 per kilo. And then I added one that they did not have. You can think of it in terms of substitution in a place of work. Okay? So in other words, you're working in place of somebody. So María está enferma, por eso voy a trabajar por ella. So she is sick, Maria is sick, so I'm going to work for her. In other words, I'm her substitute, I'm working in place of her. Por also has many different expressions that are also used with it. Things like por ahí, por aquí, por ejemplo, por eso, por fin. Very commonly used with por. Para, on the other hand, we have some uses. We've already talked about movement, like destination. Salimos para Córdoba el sábado. Being a deadline, specific time in the future. So, él va a arreglar el carro para viernes. Action, being the purpose or the goal. And this is usually, like in English, we say in order to, and it's followed by an infinitive. So, Juan estudia para ser mecánico. So, he's studying to be a mechanic. Also, a purpose. What is something being used for? So, like, es una llanta para el carro. So, it's a tire for the car. Es una copa para el vino. So, it's a glass for the wine. The recipient of something, who it is for, who you're going to be giving it to. So, compré una impresora para mi hijo. So, I bought a printer for my son. He's the one that's receiving it. We can also use it as a comparison with others or giving an opinion. For example, para un joven es demasiado serio. So for a young person, he's too serious. He's really serious. So we're that's my opinion. But I'm also comparing him with other young people. Okay? Or para mí, esta lección no es difícil. This is definitely my opinion. For me, the lesson isn't difficult. And we use it for employment. But this is who you are working for. Okay, so Sara trabaja para Telecom Argentina. So she's working for Telecom Argentina. They are her employers. So for me, yo trabajo para la Universidad Estatal de Arizona. That is my employer. Okay. In many cases, it's grammatically correct to use either por or para in a sentence, but it can change the meaning of the sentence. Okay, so caminé por el parque or caminé para el parque. One is walking through the park, the other is walking toward the park. Trabajó por su padre, trabajó para su padre. So he worked for his father. In other words, his father was ill, he took his place. Whereas trabajó para su padre, it means that, his father maybe has a company and he worked for his father's company. Okay? So that is por and para.